Hey guys, tonight we slip beneath the faded marble sky of ancient Rome. Yeah, that's right, we're going all the way back. You're about to live one full day as a Roman fishmonger, scales under your fingernails, salt on your tongue, and the distinct aroma of should have been sold yesterday following you like an uninvited friend. You probably won't survive this, hygiene-wise, but let's give it a shot. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And while you're at it, drop a comment telling me where you're tuning in from and what time it is right now. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease in to tonight's journey together. The first sounds are gulls. Their screeches slice through the cool air as you stir awake on your straw cot in a cramped insula, a cheap apartment where walls crumble if you look at them too long. The faintest blue stretches across the window slit. The Tiber smells alive, and so do you, though not in a good way. You roll out of bed and stretch. Your back pops like cracking amphora. Outside, the world is still half asleep. Cobblestones glisten with dew and last night's spilled wine. The narrow alley smells of bread from a nearby bakery, warm, yeasty comfort that mocks your empty stomach. You grab your worn cloak, a knife for gutting, and your wicker basket. Time to head toward the river. The journey begins in silence, except for the drip of water from aqueducts and the distant hum of carts. You pass a temple, Minerva's shrine maybe, and not a quick prayer. A good haul means full pockets, and full pockets mean another day's rent for your crumbling room. As you make your way downhill, Rome begins to twitch awake. A baker mutters to the dawn. A couple of bakers, their faces powdered white with flour, carry trays of dough through mist. Somewhere, a rooster shouts like it owns the empire. You chuckle to yourself. If only noise paid taxes, you think. At the corner of the Suburra, a rat dashes across your path with half a fig in its mouth. You take that as a good omen. Rats always find food. You should be so lucky. By the time you reach the Tiber, the first rays of sun bounce off the water like liquid gold. The river is your livelihood and your curse. She giveth fish, and she taketh away boats, lives, and the occasional drunken sailor. The docks are already alive with movement. Fishermen shouting, ropes creaking, seagulls fighting for scraps. The smell hits you like a gladiator's punch. Fish, tar, river mud, sweat, and the faint sweetness of decay. It's oddly comforting, like the cologne of your profession. You greet Marcus, one of the younger fishermen, his beard wet with river spray. You ask, "Big haul?" He grins, revealing teeth the color of old parchment. The gods were kind. Sardines, mullets, and one beast of a tuna that nearly sank the boat. You raise an eyebrow. Sure, and next time Neptune himself will lend you a hand. He laughs, but his eyes flick toward the horizon where mist still curls. You joke, but something moved in the water last night, bigger than a man. You roll your eyes. Fishermen always have stories. Some claim they've seen mermaids, others swear by monstrous eels. Historians still argue whether Romans actually believed in sea monsters or just used them as excuses for losing nets. But either way, you know better than to challenge a man's superstition before breakfast. You help haul the nets ashore, your hands already slick with scales. The fish gleam like coins, silver and pink under the rising sun. Some still twitch, a little symphony of death. You separate them quickly, the premium ones for the rich buyers, the smaller ones for street sellers, and the questionable ones for stew later. Nothing goes to waste, not in Rome. A group of dock workers trundle past, hauling amphoras of garum, the infamous fish sauce Romans put on everything. The smell alone could strip paint. You grin. That's money in liquid form. It's said the best garum came from Spain, but locals swear by the Roman blend. A mixture of fermented fish guts and salt. Delicious if you've never smelled it being made. Quirky tidbit, some people actually used garum medicinally, claiming it cured ulcers and hangovers. You've tried both. It cured neither. The sun edges higher, turning the river from gold to blinding white. You squint and watch a priest toss a small offering, a handful of grain, into the water. For safety, he mutters. Rome runs on ritual as much as trade. You sling your basket of fish over your shoulder and start the climb toward the Forum Boreum, the city's main livestock market, where fishmongers like you squeeze in among butchers and fruit sellers. Your sandals slap wet stone, leaving faint fishy prints behind. The streets narrow. The smell of the river fades into the smell of people, hundreds of them now, bustling toward work or worship. You pass a barber setting up his chair, a woman with amphoras balanced perfectly on her head, a boy chasing a stray dog. Someone's frying onions, and your stomach growls, loud enough to startle a mule nearby. By the time you reach the market district, Rome is fully awake. Sunlight spills across marble columns. Shouts rise and fall like waves. Fresh figs, hot bread, olives from Capua. And somewhere in amidst the chaos, fish, fresh fish, still gasping. That's your cue. You nod the Gaius, an older vendor with arms like tree trunks. You say, "Morning, old man." He smirks. "If it's morning, why do you smell like last night?" You laugh. "Because I was working while you were dreaming of your youth." He grunts and returns to scaling a carp with surgical precision. His stall gleams, tiles scrubbed, knives aligned, everything in its place. You, on the other hand, work more improvisationally. You find your spot near the fountain, where water trickles down carved dolphins. You spread your basket, display your best fish, and sprinkle them with water from your jug to make them glisten. It's part of the trick. Customers trust what shines. You can already feel the city warming, that peculiar Roman heat that turns every smell into a personal insult. You wipe your brow and smile at the first customers drifting in, a senator's cook with a list, a young mother with a toddler tugging her tunic, and a hungry-looking student probably here to stare rather than buy. You call out in your most convincing voice, "Fresh from the Tiber, so fresh it might swim away again." The cook stops, eyes your fish, and raises a skeptical eyebrow. "Yesterday's catch?" I grin. "Yesterday's river, today's fish." He chuckles and picks 2 mullets. You weigh them with your hand, a practiced guest, and quote a price that makes him frown, but pay anyway. You slip the coins into your pouch, feeling the familiar clink that means the day has begun properly. Somewhere behind you, a fight breaks out between 2 porters over a broken amphora. You sigh. Rome never changes. Too many people, too many tempers, not enough patience. As you gut your next fish, you glance toward the Tiber shimmering in the distance. It looks peaceful from here, almost kind. But you know better. You've seen it swallow boats. And once, during a storm, it swallowed my friend Lucius, too. They never found him. You shake off the memory and focus on your knife. That's Rome for you, a city where beauty and rot share the same bed. And you just sell the fish. You're already slick with sweat by the time you reach the docks again. It's barely past sunrise, but the Tiber's edge is a theater of motion. Ropes slapping wood, gulls screaming like unpaid interns, fishermen arguing and overlapping curses. You squeeze between barrels and baskets, inhaling that heady mix of brine and humanity that somehow defines your mornings. The water glows copper now, rippling beneath the wooden piers where men stand ankle-deep, dragging in the night's final nets. The fishermen have been awake since the moon hung high, faces haggard, but eyes alive with the gleam of profit. You know every one of them. Old Titus with his missing fingers, twin brothers whose names you always confuse, and Sulla, whose laugh is louder than thunder and about as pleasant. You step closer to the newest boat, a creaky, tar-stained vessel that smells of salt and garlic. The captain, Decimus, spots you. "You again?" he says, voice gravelly from shouting at waves all night. "Come to rob me blind?" You grin. "Only if the gods were generous." He gestures toward a heap of nets. Silver flashes inside like trapped starlight. You crouch, inspecting the fish. Fat sardines, some sleek mackerel, even a few squid twitching faintly. Fresh enough to pass the sniff test, which in your trade is about as scientific as it gets. "Fine haul," you say, pulling out a sardine. "Not bad for a river that smells like Garam's evil cousin." He snorts. "You think that smells the river? That's me." You throw him a coin and begin sorting. The work is fast, rough, and full of small dangers. Scales in your eyes, blades slipping in wet hands, a surprise crab clawing at your wrist. But there's a rhythm in it, the kind of repetition that numbs thought and lets the body take over. The boats keep arriving, bigger ones now, from Ostia, carrying sea fish packed in barrels of salted ice, imported luxury for the rich. You watch as handlers roll the barrels down planks, the ice sizzling into the Roman heat. That's your first historical fact for the morning. Romans did import ice from distant mountains to keep seafood fresh. It wasn't cheap. Only the upper class could afford their trout still twitching by the time it reached their table. A crowd gathers to gawk. Some whisper, "How do they keep it cold?" You know the trick. Straw-packed snow from Apennine peaks stored in underground cellars. An insane expense, but Rome loves to show off. You can't help muttering, all that effort for one senator's dinner party as you hoist another basket. Nearby, Sulla is deep in negotiation with a young woman in a dark shawl. You catch fragments of their argument, weights, prices, quality. Then she tosses a coin so casually it could have been a threat. Her basket is lined with laurel leaves, a clear sign she's buying for a temple offering. The gods, apparently, get the freshest catch of all. Sulla winks at you after she leaves. You think Neptune will bless us now? You shrug. If he does, maybe he'll also pay our taxes. He laughs, wiping his brow with a filthy rag. That's joke number 1 for the hour. The docks always deserve it. As the sun climbs, the noise thickens. Men shout about weights, women haggle over anchovies, gulls dive bomb for scraps. Somewhere a donkey brays like it's trying to join the conversation. You dodge a splash of river water, cold, gritty, probably half fish blood, and shake your head. Could bottle that smell and sell it as eau de Rome. Joke number 2. There's camaraderie here, strange and strong. No one trusts anyone, yet everyone depends on everyone. The man who cheats you today might save your boat tomorrow. It's how Rome breathes, through tangled deals and half-spoken favors. You stop to rest, leaning against a crate. Across the river, the first light hits the Aventine Hill, painting the temple's gold. You catch your breath, heart slowing. Then glance down at your hands, cracked, salt-stained, but steady. They've learned this life better than your head ever did. From the corner of your eye, you spot movement, something pale just below the surface of the river. You blink. Probably a trick of the light, maybe a drifting log. Still, for a moment, the hairs on your neck rise. "See that?" you whisper to Marcus beside you. He peers over, squints, and shrugs. "Fish or ghost? Either way, not our problem." You laugh, uneasy. "That's your answer for everything." "Exactly. Keeps me alive." Historians still argue whether Romans genuinely believed the Tiber was home to spirits or merely used those tales to scare children away from the water. You don't know which is true, but standing here, watching the current curl and twist, it's easy to think something ancient stirs beneath it, something patient. You shake the thought off as Decimus waves you over again. He's pointing proudly to a monstrous shape at the bottom of his boat. When they pull the tarp aside, the dock erupts in gasps. A tuna the size of a small horse lies there, scales flashing blue-black, one eye like a polished gem. You whistle low. "That thing's worth a month's rent." "Or a small wedding," Decimus boasts. "Caught it off Ostia, nearly lost 2 men hauling it aboard." You crouch, touching the smooth skin. "Are you sure it's not Poseidon's pet?" "If it is, I hope Poseidon tips well." It's the talk of the docks for the next hour. Everyone wants a look. Even the tax collector wanders over, pretending curiosity while mentally calculating his cut. You stay close, because a fish like that can vanish faster than you can blink. By late morning, the rhythm of trade slows. The big catches are sold or salted, and the smaller boats drift off to mend nets. You sit on an overturned crate, eating the breakfast you forgot earlier, a hunk of stale bread and a fig. The fig is sweet, the bread isn't, but hunger makes philosophers of everyone. You think about how many mouths this river feeds. Thousands every day. It's strange, you muse, that something so murky can sustain so much life. Maybe that's the point. Rome itself isn't clean either, but she's alive. A young apprentice runs up, panting. "They're calling for more sardines upriver," he says. Groan. Of course they are. He nods toward the warehouse district. "A feast for some noble's birthday. They'll pay double." You glance at your remaining baskets. Half full. You could make good coin, but the day is only begun, and the market still waits. You hesitate. Business or reliability? In Rome, loyalty lasts as long as a coin stays shiny. "Tell him I'll come after midday, the gods willing." He grins and runs off. You toss the last crumb of bread into the river and watch it float away, disappearing under a ripple that looks suspiciously deliberate. The sun climbs higher, reflecting off the water until your eyes ache. You sling your basket over your shoulder, wave to Decimus, and start back toward the market. The city's hum grows louder as you go, vendors shouting, wheels clattering, dogs barking at nothing. You catch your reflection briefly in a puddle, hair damp, face streaked with river grit, and that half-tired grin of someone who knows there's another 12 hours ahead. Halfway up the street, a group of children block your path, laughing as they chase each other with bits of net. One stops and points at your fish. "Hey, mister, that one's staring at me!" You look down. Sure enough, a mullet's glassy eye catches the sunlight. You smile. "That means he likes you. Say hello back." The boy waves solemnly. "Hello, fish." You move on, still smiling. Third joke earned, though maybe it wasn't meant as one. By the time the market rooftops appear again, your shoulders ache from the weight. The Tiber fades behind you, leaving only its smell. Sharp, briny, alive. You think of that shadow in the water and shake your head. Rome has its monsters, all right. Most of them just wear sandals. You weave back through the crowd, past butchers, olive sellers, and the endless noise that is the heartbeat of the city. Somewhere a lyre player strums off key, somewhere else a preacher shouts about the wrath of the gods. You keep walking. Your fish are waiting to meet their fates, and your coins are waiting to clink. The market hits you like a wave. Heat, noise, and the unmistakable perfume of civilization's underbelly. You've been here hundreds of mornings, but it never feels routine. Rome's Forum, Barium, the grand crossroads of trade, is a beast that wakes with a roar and doesn't quiet until long after the last scraps have spoiled. You weave through shouting vendors, your basket digging into your shoulder, as if the fish themselves are complaining about the commute. Your stall sits near the fountain of the oxen, two stone beasts frozen mid-step. You always joke that they move slower than your customers on a hot day, and today's shaping up to prove the point. You set your basket down, pull aside the linen cloth, and start arranging the morning's bounty. Shiny ones up front, dull ones hidden behind, just like politics. The smell here is layered, like Rome itself. First comes the fish, salt, iron, that faint river tang. Then the market's own breath, roasting meat, citrus peels, donkey dung, incense from the temple vendors. It's not pleasant, but it's honest. You dip a rag in the fountain and flick droplets over the fish so they glisten in the sun. Customers don't buy with reason, they buy with the eyes. To your right, Gaius the butcher is already hacking through a goat leg. Every swing of his cleaver makes you flinch. "Morning, fish boy," he shouts over the noise. "Smells like Poseidon died again." You grin. "Better than smelling like what you sell, Gaius. At least mine's still recognizable." That earns you a few chuckles from nearby vendors. First joke of the section, right on schedule. The first customers arrive soon after. A patrician servant, thin as a reed, inspects your mullets with exaggerated distaste. "My mistress requires only the freshest. She can tell the hour a fish died by the smell." You nod gravely. Then tell her these passed away exactly 1 hour before you arrived. A tragedy, truly. The servant blinks, unsure whether you're serious, then huffs and buys 2 anyway. Coin clinks, pride restored. Behind you, a fruit seller argues with a baker about the price of figs. Their voices blend with the cry of gulls circling above, hopeful for a dropped sardine. The noise is chaos, but it's the music of your life. A group of schoolboys stop at your stall, giggling. "Is that true?" one asks. "Can fish still move after they're dead?" You glance at a twitching sardine and wink. "Only if they hear bad jokes. Careful, you're making them nervous." They burst into laughter, and one dares to poke a fish, yelping as it jerks slightly. You shoo them off, smiling. Second joke, unintentional but solid. As the morning wears on, the market thickens with people. Traders, travelers, cooks, slaves carrying baskets heavier than your back would ache in sympathy. Somewhere, a man plays a flute, badly. Someone else hawks cheap amulets shaped like fish. "Keeps away evil spirits," he claims. You smirk. If fish amulets could really do that, your stall would be the safest place in Rome. You notice a scribe sketching near the fountain. He's capturing the chaos. Vendors shouting, children darting, the steam from a nearby soup stand rising like incense. You watch him work for a moment, amused. Historians still argue whether Roman markets were as wild as stories claim or if writers exaggerated for drama. Looking around now, you think even the wildest descriptions fall short. Mid-morning sun turns the marble square blinding white. You shield your eyes and take a gulp of warm water from your jug. A few flies circle your fish. You wave them off lazily. They always come back. One of your trade's oldest tricks is to sprinkle wine on the display. It masks the smell and distracts the insects. You do it now, the cheap red staining the silver scales like an artist's flourish. An older woman approaches, her tunic neat but threadbare. "How much for 2 sardines?" she asks softly. You glance at her hands, rough, scarred, working hands. Not a rich woman, maybe a laundress. You lower your price. "For you, 2 for 1 coin." She smiles, grateful. "May Neptune bless your nets." You nod. "And may Jupiter pay your rent." Joke number 3, gentle enough to make her chuckle. After she leaves, you catch Gaius watching. He raises an eyebrow. "Going soft, fish boy?" "I'm just investing in good karma. You never know which customer is secretly a goddess in disguise." He snorts. "If she is, she can afford better fish." Around midday, the noise of the market swells again. A chariot rattles past, spraying mud across your feet. You barely react. There's no point in trying to stay clean here. You slice open a bass, fingers deft, entrails sliding out in one practiced motion. You toss the guts into a bucket destined for the garum makers. Nothing wasted. Somewhere in a factory near the harbor, a man will mash those remains into sauce, worth more than your weekly profit. You pause a moment, leaning on your knife, listening. The market hums like a living organism, every shout a heartbeat, every footstep a pulse. You wonder briefly what Rome would sound like if everyone stopped moving at once. Probably like death. Your neighbor to the left, a spice seller from Alexandria, fans himself with a palm leaf. "Hotter than Vulcan's forge," he groans. "You fishmongers must boil alive by noon." You shrug. "We're half pickled already." He laughs and offers you a pinch of cinnamon. "Smell that, better than your perfume of the day." You grin and sniff and cough. "Too sweet. I'll stick to eau de sardine." As the afternoon approaches, the crowd changes. The morning rush of cooks and servants fades, replaced by idlers, gossips, gamblers, people pretending to buy something while really watching everyone else. You hear rumors drifting like smoke. The emperor's latest decree, a scandal involving a senator's son and a borrowed chariot, and a whisper about a temple theft near the Palatine. You keep your head down. Rome runs on gossip, but too much knowledge can get you drowned faster than an unlucky fish. Still, curiosity itches at you. You call out to a customer you recognize, Livia, a cook who knows everything about everyone. "Hear anything new from the Palatine?" you ask as you wrap her mackerel in fig leaves. She leans in conspiratorially. "They say someone stole a golden statue of Neptune right out of the temple last night. Guards everywhere, but not a trace." You whistle. "Brave fool."
Or stupid, she says. Historians still argue whether Neptune forgives thieves. You grin. Guess we'll find out if the Tiber floods tomorrow. The afternoon sun beats down mercilessly now. You dump another jug of water over the fish, feeling it splash cool against your forearms. Your stall smells like the sea in sweat and stubbornness. A poet might call it the scent of survival. You call it Tuesday. For a moment, you catch your reflection in the fountain. Eyes shadowed, mouth set, face older than your years. Rome ages everyone fast. You shake your head and return to work. Somewhere, a child starts singing a merchant's jingle out of tune. Another vendor joins in, and soon half the row is laughing, pretending to harmonize. The chaos turns musical for a heartbeat. Then someone knocks over a basket of olives, and the spell breaks. You keep slicing, selling, smiling. That's the rhythm of the trade. The city spins, the fish sell, the coins clink. You might not be a senator or a poet, but right here, right now, you're part of Rome's pulse.
By midday, the sun feels like it's sitting directly on your head, cooking your scalp under its golden tyranny. The marble pavement of the Forum Boarium gleams so bright it's practically shouting. Every footstep clatters like it wants to go home early. You wipe your brow with the back of your wrist and glance at your stall. Half the fish gone, half the day to go. Time for the real challenge, people. A well-dressed man approaches, the kind who wears more gold than good sense. His toga's edge is so spotless you suspect he's never peeled a grape himself. Behind him trails a servant balancing an empty wicker basket. The man sniffs the air like someone judging the quality of a perfume. "Fishmonger," he says, rolling the word around as if testing for dirt. "Do you have something worthy of Senator Varro's table?" You give him your best professional smile. "For a man of taste like the senator, I recommend this fine sea bream, caught this morning, still firm as the day Neptune made it." He pokes it with a finger, unimpressed. "Looks small." You shrug. Small fish, big flavor, much like Rome's laws. The servant smothers a laugh, and you catch the tiniest twitch of amusement at the corner of the man's mouth before he regains his dignity. "I'll take 3, he declares, tossing you a few coins. "Delivered to the Palatine by sunset." You bow slightly. "Of course, my lord, they'll arrive fresher than the senator's reputation." He's gone before he can decide if that was an insult. Joke number 1. Delivered with the stealth of a gladiator's jab. You jot his order onto a scrap of parchment and turn to your next customer, a young couple arguing over whether to buy sardines or splurge on mackerel. You smile knowingly. Every fishmonger is half merchant, half marriage counselor. "Get the sardines," you tell them. "They're loyal, stay together even after death." They both laugh, tension broken, and buy twice what they planned. That's joke number 2, and a small victory for commerce and love alike. The hours slide by in a haze of voices and coins. You develop a rhythm. Slice, sell, smile, flatter, repeat. It's less about fish and more about theater. Every sale is a little performance, pretending yesterday's catch is today's miracle, convincing a skeptical buyer that the glisten on the scales is freshness, not sweat. A tax collector drifts through the crowd, his wax tablet ready, eyes sharp. You instinctively hunch over your earnings. "Good afternoon, Lucullus. Come for a fish or just the usual daylight robbery?" He smirks. "Both, perhaps." You hand him a small mackerel. "On the house. Consider it tribute to the empire's most efficient leech." He takes it, pretending offense. "Careful, fishmonger, Rome listens." You grin. "Then I hope she's hungry." He wanders off, amused, leaving you with your purse a little lighter, but your head still attached. Historians still argue whether tax collectors in Rome were truly as corrupt as the stories claim, or just overworked scapegoats. You don't care which version's true. You just know they always smell like bad news.
Across the square, you notice something odd. Two men in rough tunics are whispering near the fountain, eyes darting toward the senator's servant who just left your stall. You pretend not to watch, but keep them in your peripheral vision. Rome runs on schemes the way the Tiber runs on silt. Both pile up fast and choke the innocent. You turn back to your fish, gutting another with practiced precision. The knife's rhythm is soothing. Cut, scrape, rinse, repeat. You lose yourself in the movement until a new voice interrupts. "Excuse me," says a woman, her accent light, not local. You glance up and freeze for a heartbeat. She's dressed simply, but carries herself like she's never had to shout to be heard. "Do you sell oysters?" "Occasionally," you reply, reaching for a small basket near the shade. "Fresh from Ostia this morning. Why? Planning a feast?" She smiles faintly. "Something like that." As she examines them, you notice her hands, clean, uncalloused, and her eyes sharp as a hawk's. Not a servant, not a market regular. Something about her presence sets your instincts twitching. She chooses a dozen oysters, pays without haggling, and disappears into the crowd. You're left with an uneasy feeling and a faint scent of jasmine. You mutter, "No one that calm ever means good news." By early afternoon, the crowd begins to thin. The heat drives people towards shade and taverns. You slump onto a stool, counting coins. Decent morning, better than yesterday. Still, after taxes and stall fees, you'll be lucky to afford a bottle of cheap wine tonight. You rub your shoulders and glance around. Gaius the butcher is already half drunk, slicing meat with the careless grace of experience. The olive seller next to him is dozing behind her stall, fanning herself lazily. Life in the market is repetition dressed as variety. Different faces, same dance. A shadow falls over your table. You look up to find a familiar grin. Sulla, the loud fisherman from the docks. "Heard you sold to a senator," he says, dropping onto your stool without asking. "Word travels fast," you reply. "You spy on me or just bored?" "Both. Also, I brought something." He holds up a small amphora with a chipped rim. "Garum, finest from Baiae, fermented 6 months. You splash this on your fish, they'll sell themselves." You sniff the amphora. The smell hits like a punch. Rotten, sour, and strangely appetizing. "You trying to clear the market, Sulla?" He laughs. "Trust me, a drop of this and even a dead octopus looks noble." You buy it off him for 2 coins and dab a bit over your slower-selling fish. The scent cuts through the air like a battle horn, drawing curious noses, and then wallets. You raise an eyebrow. "You might be onto something, old friend." "That's me," he says proudly, "a visionary in filth." Second joke volley between friends. Solid. As the crowd picks up again, a few familiar faces return. The laundress from earlier thanks you for your kindness, gifting you a strip of clean linen. You tuck it into your belt, oddly touched. Rome's kindness is rare. When it appears, you hold on tight. The sun starts its slow slide down, shadows lengthening, air thickening with the smell of cooked meat and sweat. The sounds of the Forum shift, vendors switching from selling to shouting discounts, buyers pretending they're doing you a favor by taking leftovers off your hands. A young boy runs by yelling, "A play tonight at Pompey's Theater, free for anyone who smells like fish." You yell after him, "Then I'm front row." That earns laughter from nearby vendors. Joke number 3, casual and true. You keep working, feeling the day's weight settle in your muscles. Coins clink, knives flash, voices rise and fall like waves. Somewhere a bell rings, signaling the start of the afternoon prayers. You pause, whisper a brief thanks to whoever's listening. Not Neptune, he's too busy with senators. Maybe Fortuna, goddess of luck and fishmongers who survive another day without getting stabbed or taxed into oblivion. As you rinse your hands in the fountain, the same two rough-looking men from earlier brush past, murmuring about the lady with the oysters. You freeze. Something's stirring beneath the market's surface, and it smells worse than your stall after sunset. You shake your head. Not your problem. You sell fish, not mysteries. Still, a whisper of curiosity curls in your gut. You glance down the street where the woman disappeared. The wind shifts, carrying a faint scent of jasmine again. You frown, wipe your hands, and call out to a passing customer. Fresh catch, still dreaming of the sea. Better to focus on what you know. Fish, coins, and survival. Rome can keep its secrets, for now.
By the time the sun climbs high enough to melt ambition, your stomach's been protesting for an hour. You've been up since before dawn, hands slicked with fish guts and brine. And now the only thing louder than the market noise is the growl in your belly. You glance at your stall, half empty now, and decide you've earned a break. Watch the stall, you tell the boy who sweeps the fish scales into piles for a few sesterces a day. He nods, already pocketing a dried sardine as payment. You duck into one of the narrow lanes leading off the Forum Boreum. The air there is thicker, cooler, full of the smells that make Rome, Rome. Baked bread, charcoal smoke, and the tang of sweat that clings to every citizen, from emperor to slave. A food cart waits under a crumbling archway, run by a woman with arms strong enough to strangle a soldier. She's frying chickpea pancakes on a flat bronze pan, the oil spitting and hissing. You nod in greeting. "Two panes con olio," you say, "and something to drink that won't kill me." She grins, showing teeth as white as marble. "I make no promises." She ladles out a cup of watered wine from a clay jug, thick with the smell of sour grapes and river dust. You lean against the wall and take your first real bite of the day. Hot, salty, greasy perfection. The chickpea pancake crunches at the edges and melts in the middle, just enough to make you forget you've been breathing fish since sunrise. At the next cart, a pair of workers argue about a gladiator match. "I tell you, the Thracian's got a new sword arm." "Bah," replies the other. "You can't grow one of those back." They both laugh, clinking cups, and you can't help joining in. Rome lives on laughter and lies. They keep the dust down. A few stalls away, a group of women in fine stolas gossip under a canopy. One of them, the senator's wife, you realize, is describing a scandal so juicy it could season a stew. "Did you hear?" she says, voice pitched for maximum spread. "Varro's cook served fish 3 days old to the consul last week." The others gasp, like trained performers. You almost choke on your pancake. 3 days old? That's practically mummified. If it's true, your senator's table reputation might be in danger, and by extension, your delivery contract. You mutter under your breath. So that's where my sea bream ends up, in the mouth of a gossip. You finish your wine and wander toward the riverbank, craving a bit of breeze. The Tiber glints dull and brown, sluggish but alive. A few boys are daring each other to jump in. You can practically smell the disease from here. Still, the sound of splashing water is oddly soothing after the market's din. An old man sits nearby, mending nets. He looks up as you pass. "Hot one," he says. "Too hot," you answer. He nods sagely. Rome's always hot. In summer, in politics, in the heart. Laugh. "And in debt," he snorts. "That too." You toss him a coin, for no reason at all, and keep walking. The air by the water carries a faint breeze, and for a brief moment, the city feels almost kind. From the docks, you can still hear the distant echo of vendors shouting. Their voices rise and fall like the tide. You close your eyes and imagine the sea, real sea air, salt, clean enough to taste, not the muddy tang of the Tiber. Maybe someday you'll leave this market behind, buy a little boat, sell your catch fresh on the waves instead of rotting in the sun. But dreams are expensive, and you're still 3 debts behind. Your reverie breaks, broken by a familiar voice. "You're far from your stall, fishmonger." You turn. It's the woman from earlier, the one with the oysters. She's standing by the water's edge, veil drawn low.
The jasmine scent again. Taking a break, you say, cautious. Fish don't sell themselves. No, she replies softly, but secrets do. You tilt your head. You look like you got one to sell. Her lips twitch, not quite a smile. Maybe I've already sold it. Before you can reply, she walks away, vanishing into the alleys behind the warehouses. You stare after her, unease crawling up your spine. The whisper of conspiracy from earlier returns, now louder. A senator, two suspicious men, and a woman who buys oysters but talks in riddles, not your usual lunch company. You sigh, finishing the last of your pancake. Next time I'm eating at home. Still, you can't shake the feeling that you've just stepped into a story bigger than yourself. And in Rome, that usually ends with someone in chains or on a stage reciting their final words to a crowd. You make your way back to the market, the heat wrapping you like a damp cloak. The boy's still at your stall, miraculously awake, and most of your fish are untouched. Any trouble? You ask. He shakes his head. A dog tried to steal a mullet, but I scared it off. Good lad. You toss him the last bite of your pancake. You roll up your sleeves, pick up your knife, and dive back into the trade. For all its danger and stink, the market is where you belong, until Rome decides otherwise. As you gut another fish, you glance down the street, half expecting to see that veiled woman again. But she's gone, like mist off the Tiber. You mutter to yourself, fish, taxes, and trouble. Always in threes. And you keep cutting.
Section 6. Afternoon and Heat. Tricks of the Trade. By now, the sun sits like an emperor on his golden throne, glaring down at you and daring you to quit. The Roman afternoon has a special kind of cruelty. Thick air, shimmering cobblestones, and flies with more ambition than half the Senate. The fish, of course, hate it even more than you do. They're turning glassy-eyed, their once silvery scales starting to dull, and you can practically hear them whispering, "You should have sold me 2 hours ago." You grab your wooden bucket and splash a handful of river water over the pile of mackerel, pretending it'll help. It doesn't, but it feels productive, which counts for something in Rome. There's a saying among fishmongers, the only thing faster than a bad smell is a bad rumor. Right now, you're surrounded by both. The market buzzes slower in the heat, voices lower, movements sluggish. But beneath the lull, little dramas still unfold. A rival stall across the lane, old Gaius with his crooked grin and fresher-smelling fish, starts mocking your setup. "Hey, you selling fish or relics from Pompeii?" he calls out, waving a sardine like a flag. You grin without looking up. "Careful, Gaius. That sardine looks more alive than your wife." The crowd bursts into laughter. Gaius grumbles, mutters something about curses, and turns back to his customers. Small victories. You take them where you can. You glance over your shoulder, just in time to spot a tax collector slinking through the crowd, his wax tablet gleaming in the sun. Instinctively, you stack your smaller coins on top of the bigger ones, making your takings look humbler. He approaches, sweating, breathing heavily, trying to appear authoritative. "Merchant, the state thanks you for your contributions." You give your most innocent smile. "Oh, state, is it? I thought you and your friends were collecting for that new fountain by your mother's house." He doesn't laugh. You hand him 2 coins, less than he expects, but more than he can refuse without causing a scene. He scribbles something on the tablet and shuffles away, already eyeing the next victim. Historians still argue, you muse under your breath, whether Rome's tax system kept the empire running or strangled it slowly. You'd argue for the latter, at least from the fishmonger's point of view. A splash of cold water from your bucket jolts you back to the moment. You're sweating like a gladiator before the lions, and the smell of the market has gone from briny to biblical. Time for a few of those trade tricks that separate survivors from amateurs. First, you reach for the old trick of the trade, mixing crushed mint leaves with salt and rubbing it over your display boards. The strong scent buys you another hour before the stench wins. Then, for good measure, you stuff damp seaweed between the fish, pretending it's decoration.
Customers love anything that looks fresh from the sea, even if it came from the Tiber. Across the lane, a group of sailors are demonstrating their freshness trick, burying their catch in cool sand under their cart. You tried that once. A dog dug up half your inventory before noon. Never again. You lean on your counter, wiping your hands. The boy's fanning himself with a scrap of parchment. "Can we go home yet?" he groans. I chuckle. "Home? Rome doesn't close for heat, boy. The sun just makes us slower liars." You toss him a fig and go back to work. A group of temple attendants stroll by next, their white robes practically glowing. They're buying offerings for a feast in honor of Neptune, god of the sea. The irony isn't lost on you, selling fish to men who will burn it as a sacrifice to the same god that gave it to you. Still, you keep your smile polite. "Fine mullets today, fresh enough to wink at you." One of them raises an eyebrow. "We'll take 6, but none of your jokes in the temple, monger." "Wouldn't dream of it," you reply. "The gods already laugh enough at me." They leave, muttering prayers, and you shake your head. Historians still argue whether Romans actually believed in all their gods or just paid tribute out of habit. You've never been sure yourself, but you've seen men survive storms by praying to Neptune and others drown while doing the same. Make of that what you will. The afternoon drags on, stretching like old taffy. To distract yourself, you hum a tune, a sailor's song about a mermaid who falls in love with a fisherman's wife. The boy joins in, off-key but earnest. A few customers even hum along. And for a brief, shimmering moment, the whole market feels alive again. Then comes the smell, the unexpected, soul-punching smell of fish turned traitor. You sniff, glance around, and spot the culprit. A basket of anchovies forgotten under the stall. You lift the lid and instantly regret it. The boy coughs. "Bury them," you order, voice muffled through your sleeve. "Deep." He stares. "Where?" "Anywhere that's not near me." He disappears down the alley, clutching the basket like a bomb. You pour vinegar over the ground where they sat, an old trick to neutralize the smell. It works, mostly. By late afternoon, the light turns honey gold. Shadows stretch long across the cobblestones. The air cools just enough for people to venture back into the streets. You take a long breath, wipe your brow, and look over your dwindling stock. Only a few fish left. You'll sell them soon. Just then, a messenger boy in a tunic too clean for his job stops by. "Message for you," he says, holding out a small wax tablet. You frown. "From who?" He shrugs. "Didn't say. Just told me you'd know the smell." You break the seal. The message inside is short, almost lazy in its confidence. "Meet at the warehouse by the North Docks. Bring your scales, not the ones for fish." You look up, but the boy's already gone, swallowed by the crowd. Your pulse quickens. The woman with the oysters? The senator? Or something else? You tuck the tablet inside your apron. The last thing you need is to be caught reading mysterious notes while pretending to sell mullets. You force a smile for your next customer, a baker looking for dinner. You want something that won't talk back, or something that might bite first? He laughs. You hand him a decent catch, your mind already miles away, by the river, in the dark, where answers might smell worse than fish. The sun dips lower, painting Rome in rust and smoke. You stretch your sore arms, listen to the market wind down, and whisper to yourself. Every trade has its secrets. Ours just rot faster. Word count, 1172. Awaiting, continue.
The sun's dropping behind the 7 hills now, turning everything the color of old bronze. The worst of the heat has bled out of the day, but the smell of the market, fish, sweat, and ambition still hangs thick as a Roman senator's perfume. You stretch your aching back and glance down the line of stalls. This is the hour for desperate merchants and cunning buyers, when coins jingle louder, tempers soften, and everyone pretends to be a better negotiator than they are. "Last chance for the sea's finest," you shout, voice raw but still steady. "Buy now before Neptune takes them back." A few stragglers shuffle closer, housewives haggling over sardines, a soldier with a half-empty purse, and a child clutching 2 coppers like a secret. You slip into your end-of-day rhythm, part showman, part survivor. A woman eyes your last large mullet, pokes it skeptically. "Still fresh?" You grin. "Lady, it blinked at me this morning." She laughs, not because she believes you, but because it's easier to laugh than to argue. The coin changes hands. You wipe your palms on your apron and glance toward the docks. The light there is dimmer, shadows longer. You know you've got an appointment soon, but work first, danger later, always the Roman way. 2 dock workers pass by, hauling crates that smell suspiciously like spoiled oysters. "Poor bastards, should have learned from my morning batch." The boy beside you chuckles. "Historians still argue," you tell him absently, "whether the Romans were the first to invent refrigeration. They buried food in pits with snow from the mountains. Imagine that! Snow in Rome. Cost more than gold, probably." The boy wrinkles his nose. "We could use some of that right now." "Ha! We can't even afford decent vinegar." You start packing your unsold fish into clay jars of brine. The slosh and scrape are oddly soothing. A fellow vendor down the row starts telling a story loud enough for everyone to hear, something about a dolphin rescuing a boy from drowning near Ostia. You smirk. Every evening it's the same tales. If the dolphins really loved us that much, they'd buy a fish once in a while. Still, you half listen as you work. The tale twists and grows with every retelling. By the end, the dolphin's practically running for consul. Rome thrives on stories, especially the ones no one can prove. You're almost done closing up when Gaius, your rival from earlier, wanders over. He's got that smug grin that means he's either drunk or about to be. "Slow day?" he asks. You shrug. "I sold enough to keep eating. Can't all be Neptune's favorite, eh?" He laughs. "He must like me better. I didn't even have to water my fish today." You shoot him a look. "That's because yours are half salt already." He grins wider. "And half yours by morning if you don't watch your stall." You both laugh, but there's a tension under it, the kind that sits between competition and camaraderie. In a city where fortunes rot faster than fish, rivals often share the same shade of hunger. As the crowd thins, a group of sailors drift in, already half drunk. They toss coins, buy scraps, and demand stories instead of receipts. You oblige them. It's part of the dance. "You ever seen the sea in a storm?" you begin, wiping your knife clean. "Waves taller than temples, foam black as ink. We lost 2 boats once, gone so fast the wind didn't even have time to scream." One sailor leans in, eyes gleaming. "And what did Neptune take in return?" You tap your chest. "Just a promise. Never go out alone." The sailors cheer, slap your back, toss an extra coin into your bowl. They think you're joking. You don't tell them you meant every word. Behind the stalls, shadows grow restless. Torches flicker to life, painting the cobblestones gold. Somewhere nearby, a lyre starts to play. Soft, melancholy notes that drift above the hum of closing trades. And then you see her. The veiled woman from earlier stands at the edge of the market, her face turned just enough to catch the fading light. This time, there's no pretense of coincidence. She raises one hand slightly, an invitation. You glance around to make sure no one's watching, then nod toward the boy. "Lock up. Sell whatever's left to Gaius if you have to." He frowns. "Where are you going?" "I'm to find out why my life suddenly smells worse than fish," you mutter, stepping away. You follow her through the maze of stalls, past the shouting vendors, into the narrow alleys that lead down to the Tiber. The air there is cooler, touched by the scent of water and decay. She stops by the warehouse,
the same one from the wax tablet, and turns to face you. Her veil is gone. She's younger than you expected, but her eyes carry the weight of someone who's seen the empire from its gutters upward. "You got my message?" she says. "You sent that?" She nods. "You have scales. You know weight. I need someone who can weigh things honestly." You snort. "You clearly don't know fishmongers." She almost smiles. "Not those scales. These." She lifts a small leather pouch, the kind used for measuring coins. It jingles with something heavier. "What's this about?" you ask. She steps closer. "There's a shipment coming tomorrow. Fish crates, officially. But inside, something else. Gold, maybe. Or scrolls. Or both. I don't know. I just know who's paying for it, and who's willing to kill for it." You blink. "And you want me?" She says, "I want someone invisible. Someone who smells like the docks. You fit." You snort. "That's the first time anyone's called me invisible." For a moment, you both stand there, the river whispering behind you. Torches flicker against the warehouse walls. You realize you're trembling, not from fear, but from the sense that the world has quietly tilted just enough to make everything uncertain. She presses the pouch into your hand. "Meet me here again at dawn. Don't tell anyone." Before you can reply, she's gone, swallowed by the darkness between torches. You stare at the pouch. The weight feels dangerous, the kind of weight that can sink a man faster than the Tiber itself. A shout from the market breaks your trance, someone calling your name, maybe the boy, maybe Gaius. You tuck the pouch deep into your apron and head back through the alley, heart hammering like a smith's forge. The market's nearly empty now, the last light fading from the sky. You close your stall, tie down the awning, and take one final breath of the day's scent: salt, smoke, and a hint of trouble. Rome exhales around you, and for once, you listen.
The market's gone quiet now, replaced by the softer hum of nightfall. You wipe the last of the fish guts from your hands with a rag that's seen better decades and toss it into a bucket. Your fingers still smell of brine, no matter how hard you scrub. You always joke that one day they'll bury you with that smell and nobody will notice the difference. The boy's long gone, paid with a stale loaf and a few coins that jingle like promises. The stalls stand half-folded, their wooden frames creaking in the cooling breeze. Somewhere in the distance, a temple bell marks the beginning of the night shift, the hour when honest work ends and dangerous fun begins. You close your purse, feel the weight of the mysterious pouch hidden underneath your tunic, and tell yourself you'll think about it later. For now, you're thirsty. The tavern by the river has no name, only a scratched wooden fish sign swinging from a rusted hook. Inside, the air is warm, thick with the mingling smells of wine, sweat, and roasted barley. The floor's sticky, the benches wobbly, and the clientele, well, it's not the kind of place you bring your mother, which, you remind yourself, is exactly why you like it. You push through the crowd, catching snippets of conversation, someone arguing about chariot races, another boasting about a mistress who may or may not exist, and in one corner, a pair of sailors whispering about the storm at Ostia like it's a ghost story. You find an empty stool and order the cheapest wine that won't blind you. The barkeep, a giant of a man with arms like oars and a missing eyebrow, nods in recognition. "Rough gay?" he asks. "Same as every day, except this one smells slightly richer in mystery." He snorts and pours you a clay cup of wine so sour it could pickle fish. You drink anyway. Around you, the tavern glows with that peculiar warmth that only comes from shared exhaustion. Merchants, laborers, even a few soldiers, all melting into the same haze of laughter and regret. Someone starts playing a reed flute, wobbly but heartfelt. The tune's an old sea shanty about a fisherman who falls in love with a siren and ends up selling seashells on land forever. Sounds about right, you mutter. Gaius appears, of course, because trouble always knows your address. He slaps you on the back hard enough to spill your drink. "There's my favorite liar," he bellows, dragging up a stool. "Didn't think you'd survive the heat." I barely. If Rome gets any hotter, I'll start selling grilled fish instead of fresh. He laughs so loudly the barkeep winces. Now there's a business plan. You drink together for a while, swapping half-true stories. You tell him about the woman with the oysters, carefully omitting the part about the pouch. He listens, shaking his head. "That sounds like bad luck wearing perfume. You sure she's not part of some senator's scheme?" You shrug. In Rome, everyone's part of some senator's scheme. He toasts to that, spilling half the wine on his tunic. From the next table, an old sailor leans over, his face a map of wrinkles and scars. He says, "You talk too loud for men who owe Neptune nothing." Gaius grins, "And you talk too much for someone still breathing." But the old man doesn't back down. "Mark me, there's a storm coming. You can smell it in the water, the kind that drags ships and souls down together." You glance toward the open window. The river glimmers under the moonlight, slow and deceptively calm. Maybe he's just drunk, but maybe not. You've lived your whole life by the Tiber. You know its moods, and tonight it feels uneasy. The conversation drifts from superstition to gambling. Dice appear, cups rattle, and coins clink. You're not immune to temptation. You never have been. You join in, tossing the little bone cubes with a half smile. You lose the first round, win the second, lose again, then tie. The pattern feels eerily like your life. "Come on, Fishman, you handle scales all day. Surely you can weigh your odds." You throw again and win big. The coins tumble into your palm with a satisfying clink. For once, fortune smells like copper instead of cod. You lift your cup in mock salute. "To the goddess Fortuna, may she occasionally look away when I cheat." Laughter rolls around the table. Someone bangs on the wall, shouting for another round. The night softens into that hazy middle ground between revelry and ruin. Then, just for a moment, you drift. The wine blurs the edges of the room. The tavern noise fades into the distant murmur of the river. You imagine yourself far from Rome, maybe on a boat bound for Greece or Egypt, somewhere the air smells of open sea instead of sewage. You'd wake with the sun, sell fish so fresh they'd almost swim off the boat, and never once argue with a tax collector. You smile at the thought. Dreams always come easier after cheap wine. But then your hand brushes against the pouch under your tunic, and reality comes back hard. The weight of it feels heavier now, almost pulsing with the rhythm of the river outside. You excuse yourself and step out into the night air. The street's quiet, lit only by oil lamps and the faint glow of torches reflecting off the Tiber. A cool breeze cuts through the heat, carrying the city's evening sounds, distant laughter, a barking dog, and the clatter of sandals on stone. Rome never sleeps. It just changes its mask. You walk a little, letting the wine settle. The pouch thumps softly against your chest. You wonder what's inside. Gold, scrolls, or something worse. Maybe you should throw it in the river and forget, but you know you won't. Curiosity's a disease you've never recovered from. You stop by the bridge, looking down at the moon's reflection, trembling on the dark water. The same river that feeds you could drown you without a second thought. Behind you, footsteps echo. Too light for a guard, too steady for a drunk. You turn, but no one's there, just the whisper of the wind between stone arches. "Great," you mutter. "Now even ghosts are interested in me." You head back toward your stall's direction, passing the sleeping forms of beggars and the flickering shadows of rats darting into cracks. Rome's night smells of secrets, cheap perfume, stale bread, and ambition gone sour. By the time you reach your cot in the corner of the warehouse, the stars are faint,
swallowed by the city's haze. You lie down, fully dressed, the pouch still pressed to your chest. You tell yourself you'll open it at dawn, when your head's clear, when you're sober. You close your eyes, the tavern's noise fades into memory, replaced by the low murmur of the Tiber against its banks, a lullaby of danger and comfort. Sleep takes you slowly, like the tide, half pulled, half surrendered. And somewhere between dream and waking, you think you hear a woman's voice whisper, "Be ready."
You wake in the dark. No sound, no light, only the soft hiss of the Tiber brushing against the stones outside. For a moment, you think it's dawn. Then you realize it's not dawn at all. The air is too heavy, too still. The kind of stillness that feels like something is holding its breath. Your eyes adjust slowly. Moonlight leaks through the cracks in the warehouse shutters, painting silver lines across the floor. The city sleeps. Even the rats are quiet. You sit up, heart thumping. That voice, you're sure you heard it. Be ready. The words still coil in your skull like smoke. You could laugh it off as a dream, but something in your gut refuses to. You reach for the pouch. It's still there, right against your chest. Heavier than before. Or maybe it's just your imagination tightening around it. You undo the string. Inside is not gold, not coins, not jewels. It's a small wax-sealed scroll wrapped in a strip of blue-dyed silk, the kind of dye that only the wealthy can afford. There's also a faint smell, sea salt, and something floral, faint but familiar. Her perfume. Your fingers tremble slightly as you break the seal. The wax cracks softly, a sound that feels far louder in the silence. The scroll is short, written in neat Latin script. Deliver this to the temple of Portunus by dawn. Tell no one. The river watches. No signature, no mark, just that single phrase. The river watches. You whisper the words aloud. They sound strange on your tongue, like a prayer and a threat all at once. You glance toward the shutter again. Outside, a faint mist has begun to rise from the water, wrapping the docks in ghostly veils. Somewhere in the fog, a chain clinks softly, metal on metal. You should go back to sleep. You should wait for morning, but curiosity, as always, wins. You grab your cloak, shove the scroll into your belt, and step out into the Roman night. The streets are nearly empty, save for the occasional drunk or stray dog. Oil lamps flicker in their holders, casting long, twitching shadows. Every sound feels amplified. The echo of your sandals on stone, the soft rustle of your cloak, the distant creak of a moored boat shifting in the current. The river glimmers to your left, black and silver, restless. You walk along its edge, following the curve of the embankment toward the old Forum Byrum, where the temple of Portunus stands like a sentinel, half in shadow, half in starlight. It's a place of trade and blessings, dedicated to the god of harbors and quays. You've left offerings there before, small things like a coin or a sardine when business was bad, but never at night. The closer you get, the thicker the fog becomes, curling around your legs like living breath. Then you hear footsteps behind you. Not loud, careful. Someone's trying to match your pace. You quicken, the footsteps quicken too. You turn sharply, hand instinctively gripping the small fish knife tucked into your belt. Nothing, just mist and silence. But you're not alone. You can feel it, like the air itself is watching. You press on, passing the stone pillars of the temple. The carvings along its base glisten faintly with dew, each relief depicting ships, keys, fish, and waves. The god's face looms above the entrance, calm, unreadable. You place the scroll at the foot of the altar, unsure whether to kneel or run. Then, from the shadows, a shape moves. A cloaked figure steps forward, the hem of their garment brushing the wet marble. You can't see their face, only the faint outline of their chin and the gleam of something metallic at their throat, perhaps a medallion, shaped like a key. You freeze. They speak softly, a voice like deep water. You've done as asked. You nod slowly. I didn't read it. The figure tilts their head. You did. It's not a question. You open your mouth, but no sound comes out. The figure steps closer, close enough for you to smell the same perfume again, faintly floral, faintly oceanic. It is her, the woman from the market. You kept your promise, she says, though there's no warmth in it. That will have to be enough. You take a breath. What is this about? What's in the scroll? She studies you for a long moment. The mist curls between you like a living thing. Something Rome must not see, and something the river must remember. Before you can ask more, she lifts her hand in a gesture both graceful and final. Forget night, fishmonger. Go home. Tomorrow, sell your fish, curse your luck, live your small life. That is the gift I give you. And just like that, she turns and walks into the fog. You stand there, heart hammering, until her shape fades completely into the mist. Only the sound of the river remains, steady, ancient, unbothered. You look down at your hands. They're shaking, though you can't tell if it's fear or the chill. You don't know what just passed through your life, but you know it was something bigger than trade, bigger than fish, maybe even bigger than Rome itself. You head back the way you came, the first hint of dawn bleeding into the horizon. The city begins to stir again. Vendors shouting, carts clattering, the first cries of the gulls overhead. By the time you reach your stall, the sun is crawling over the rooftops. The boy is already there, waiting, holding a bucket of fresh catch. You look like you saw a ghost, he says. I force a smile. Maybe I did. He shrugs and starts setting up the stall. Ghosts don't pay for fish. You laugh softly. No, you say, looking out at the river. But sometimes they tip better than customers. You roll up your sleeves. The market bell rings. Life resumes. But as you gut the first fish of the day, you notice a single strand of blue silk tangled in its scales, wet, glinting in the sunlight. And when you glance toward the river, you swear, just for an instant, you see a ripple move against the current. The river watches. The night has barely released its grip when the first hints of light streak across the horizon. You're already on your feet, rubbing the stiffness from your shoulders, muscles aching from yesterday's labors and last night's tension. Rome awakens slowly, like a beast stretching after a long, restless sleep, and the market smells like a promise of chaos waiting to be fulfilled. Your stall stands ready, partially shaded by the early sun, the few fish left from yesterday still wrapped in brine, firm enough to fool anyone who isn't paying attention. You glance at the Tiber and notice that the water's surface glitters with reflections of dawn, the same river that whispered threats and secrets only hours ago. You start prepping, gutting, slicing, arranging, and the boy arrives, yawning and clutching a bundle of fresh herbs. The city hums around you. Carts creak, merchants shout, dogs bark, and somewhere the clatter of sandals echoes off the cobblestones. The smell of freshly baked bread wafts from a bakery across the square, mingling with the ever-present odor of fish. "Morning already?" the boy mutters. "Rome doesn't wait, and neither does Neptune." The crowd trickles in slowly. Housewives, soldiers, sailors, and beggars, all looking for breakfast or bargaining practice. You greet each of them with practiced charm, pretending that the world hasn't shifted beneath your feet, that last night's encounter with the veiled woman never happened. Historians still argue whether Romans ever truly trusted strangers or simply performed trust as part of daily survival. You know the answer. It's mostly performance, sprinkled with desperation. The first sale comes from a middle-aged woman buying sardines. You flash your usual grin. These beauties fought the waves themselves to reach your table. She laughs and hands over her coins. That familiar rhythm, trade, negotiation, laughter, grounds you. Mid-morning, a group of sailors passes, loudly discussing the previous day's storms along the coast. You smile wryly, thinking about the old sailor in the tavern warning of trouble at Ostia. The Tiber's tides are fickle, but Rome's tides, its politics, its whispers, its hidden agendas, are far worse. By midday, the market has gained momentum. You slice, weigh, and sell. You feel the knife in your hand, the fish under your fingers, the small victories in coins clinking against the clay jars. Life in Rome repeats itself in cycles of motion and smell, each day a rehearsal of survival. And yet, the memory of the veiled woman lingers. The wax-sealed scroll, the blue silk, the warning from the river, they pulse in your mind like a secret heartbeat. You tuck the memory aside. For now, it's enough to focus on the mundane, selling fish, dodging tax collectors, making the small decisions that keep you alive. A young boy runs past, selling news of a theater performance at Pompeii's. You call out a joke about fish that swim better than the actors. Laughter ripples around the square. Rome thrives on humor, even as it groans under heat, greed, and ambition. As the sun climbs higher, a merchant haggles for the last remaining mackerel. You weigh it, slice it, and hand it over with a flourish. Another sale, another small victory. You glance at the Tiber, the same restless water from last night. It's calm now, but you know better. The river always moves, always watches, and always remembers. By afternoon, the market slows down again. You pause, wipe sweat from your brow, and take a deep breath. The air is thick with life, and the scent of fish, bread, and the river mix in a heady cocktail. You smile faintly, knowing that tomorrow the cycle will begin again. Sunrise, fish, coin, whispers, and the subtle threats hidden in the mist. Yet in these moments, even as the world tilts with uncertainty, there's a rhythm to your life. Knife in hand, eyes alert, senses alive. The fish must be weighed, the coins counted, the stories told. And somewhere, beyond the stalls, past the Tiber, beyond the reach of ordinary understanding, the river keeps its secrets. The market bell rings. Another day begins. You take your first breath of the morning, ready to dive into the chaos, ready to sell, ready to survive. The city stretches around you, alive and hungry, and you step forward into its endless rhythm. Because in Rome, life never truly pauses. The river watches, the fish wait, and you, like every other soul caught in its currents, carry on. The day softens as evening creeps slowly over Rome. You step away from the market, the noise fading behind you, replaced by the gentle lapping of the Tiber against its stone banks. The city exhales, a low rumbling murmur of lives winding down, of footsteps slowing, of distant voices blending into the hush of twilight. You sit on the edge of the dock, letting your hands rest on the cool, rough wood. The fish scales cling faintly to your fingers, a reminder of labor and survival, but the air feels different now. Lighter, tinged with the faint scent of riverweed and the last warmth of the sun. Each breath draws the city in, carrying the smell of bread, wine, and smoke, and slowly the tension that has wrapped around you all day loosens. The river moves steadily, patient, indifferent to your small concerns. It reflects the stars, and for a moment, the empire's vastness feels both enormous and intimate. You trace the ripples with your gaze, thinking of the veiled woman, the pouch, the blue silk, and then you let the thoughts drift. Tonight, there's no urgency, no danger pressing in. Only the gentle hush of water and the soft, comforting knowledge that Rome endures and you along with it. Your muscles relax, your mind quiets. Each small worry, the tax collector, the spoiled fish, yesterday's threats, melts into the evening. The city hums a lullaby in its own way. Creaking shutters, distant voices, the occasional bark of a dog, and the river's ceaseless song. You close your eyes, letting the soft darkness and the sound of flowing water cradle your thoughts. For now, you are simply alive, part of this vast, chaotic city. The fish can wait until morning. The coins can wait. The secrets can wait. Tonight is for breath, for reflection, for the quiet awareness that you have made it through another day. And as the stars flicker overhead and the Tiber murmurs its eternal rhythm, you feel a gentle certainty settle over you. Come dawn, you will rise, face the market, and continue your life as Rome continues around you. For now, you rest.